Ricky Morton has often said that the Rock and Roll Express were punished for outdrawing Dusty. Magnum TA has even said that Dusty was his best friend, but he could tell that Dusty was trying to hold him back if he started to surpass Dusty. I'm curious to hear Jim's opinion on these claims and whether or not he feels that the Midnight Express were ever sabotaged by Dusty.
Well, no. First of all, that's definitely not the case. Midnight Express owes a lot of what we accomplished to Dusty because we were heels. He was a babyface. He wanted us hotter than a goddamn $2 pistol so that he could beat us up and get over him better. And the heat that he poured on Bubba Rogers as his hand-picked main event opponent was incredible. And I just finished writing a column for Fighting Spirit about his masterful build of Big Bubba, who ended up Ray Traylor, and he was a great talent and a great friend of mine. And I wrote the column in conjunction with the fact it's been 10 years since he passed away and 15 years since Brian Hildebrand passed away. But so I'm not knocking Bubba, but Bubba in March of 1986 was a job guy that had 10 matches and basically laid down for Tully Blanchard on a 5-minute squash on TBS television and took the slingshot suplex and did it so well that Bubba took him off television and brought him back 2 months later that Dusty took him off television and brought him back 2 months later as my bodyguard, Big Bubba Rogers. And by 6 months later, Dusty versus Bubba, the main event in Atlanta and Charlotte in the same day, drew over 15,000 fans and over $150,000. This is a guy who had been a full-time wrestler 4 months. And by the time his year anniversary came about, Bubba's, he main evented against Dusty in a cage in Pittsburgh to 16,600 people and over $165,000, the most people still yet to see a wrestling match in the city of Pittsburgh ever. Dusty wanted to get his heels as hot as he could because he wanted giant dragons to slay. Now, on the babyface side, we had heard that Dusty did make that when the Midnight Rock and Roll sold out Charlotte and Dusty wasn't on the card. We had heard it was dressing room scuttlebutt that Dusty said nobody's going to sell out Charlotte without the Dream on the card. But at the same point, while I do not want to take issue with anything that Ricky Morton says, and I wasn't in it, but I don't think that Dusty purposely, with the benefit of hindsight, cooled the Rock and Roll Express off because of that. I think that there was a time where Ricky and Robert had issues with Jim Crockett Promotions that were legitimate issues, such as the fact that they got screwed on their fan club that took in $1 million and they got like 20 grand a piece and money and payoffs and et cetera, and the work schedule and being unappreciated. And I think that probably paints their opinion of what Dusty was doing, but Dusty's a smart man. Dusty's got an ego as big as All Outdoors and all superstars do, and that's what makes him great. But Dusty also, in addition to being the top babyface in the company, also had a financial interest. He was getting paid more to be the booker than he was to be the top star. And he was in a war with somebody that could put him out of business, Vince McMahon. So if he had people that was going to sell tickets, I don't think he was going to purposely hold them back. And with Magnum, they were good friends, and Magnum was a future NWA world champion and a future superstar that was already a main event player. And this is not in any way downgrading Magnum TA, but there's no way that Magnum TA was ever going to be as big in the wrestling business as Dusty Rhodes already was. And that's just a fact. Because when you talk about wrestling in the 70s and 80s, you got to talk about Dusty Rhodes, superstar Billy Graham, Hulk Hogan, and Andre the Giant, and Ric Flair. And after those five, it fucking drops dramatically.